Hello and welcome to Parenting Porcupines. I'm Casey. I'm up in the Midlands of South Carolina. I was going to say the upstate, but I'm not in the upstate. Jessica, you're in the upstate. Tell us who you are and who your kids are.
I'm Jessica. I'm in the upstate, unlike Casey, who's in the Midlands. In case you missed all of that.
There's been some wine, Jessica. Not being deadly. There's been some wine.
Well, I've had a lot of Easy Mac tonight. So I've got two boys. One is 12 and the other one is 9.
And I'm Melissa. I'm in the Low Country down in Charleston. I've got 3 kids. They're in kindergarten, 2nd, and 5th. And the 2 little ones went back to physical school yesterday. And I have gotten more done in the past 2 days than I've gotten done in 6 months. And I love it.
I would say easily.
Yeah.
Well, tonight's episode 15, is called Eventually You'll Lose. And the reason for this episode is here in my hand. It's my Clemson wine glass, hand-painted wine glass. It says, "We beat all y'all." And that's from the 2018 season when Clemson went undefeated. And we have a tendency in our family to be big-time Clemson fans. And over the weekend, they lost to Notre Dame. And I'm in no way upset or embarrassed or ashamed by this loss to Notre Dame because that was a hella good game. I mean, a really good football game. And I was giving my friends a hard time because we have this group text, and some of our Clemson friends, some of our Clemson fans, they don't want to play football. They just want to win. And if they can't win or they don't win, they get completely bent out of shape, which I think is familiar to anybody watching the election results and what's happening in the White House, right? So combine the Saturday projection of President-elect Biden and this now what's gone on for about a week, temper tantrum that we're seeing out of the White House and the Clemson loss. And I thought, if you play enough football, eventually you lose. If you run in enough elections, eventually you lose. Biden has said multiple times he's lost a lot of races. He's lost more races than he's won, right? So we know as politicians, as political people, that we're going to see folks lose their races. And we have I would hope, a healthy approach to this concept of losing or at least failure in that particular way. So I thought we could talk about that. How do you explain it to your kids? How do you make sure you're not raising sore losers? And I figured a little bit of that goes a long way. So let's jump in, shall we? I moved my show notes to a different window. So I'm going to open that window now so that I'll have access to them.
So I know what is happening.
I can actually see them. I'm like, I'm stalling. Why am I stalling? Because I can't read the show notes. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I can, Jackson, I think I've told you guys, Jackson used to play competitive baseball. He played tournament ball for about 3 years. And so losing is no new thing in our house because he's been part of teams that lost quite a good bit. But it was funny. I was telling you guys before we started the show, Caldwell, however, and he's actually 8. I said he was 9. He's 8. But he was born without a shit to give. Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything. And so, like, if he's playing a sport and they lose, he's like, yeah, whatever. But he cares more about, like, grades and things like that. So the conversations that we have with him are more about personal experience and things like that.
Well, we have this refrain up here, and it happened all the time in Holly's elementary school that was about doing your personal best, doing your personal best, doing your personal best, and only judging yourself against your previous efforts and this kind of thing, right? And I always sort of struggle with that because I thought, like, it's how realistic is it really to be thinking about your personal best is good enough when in fact you are going to suffer defeat? Like, where's the vocabulary for defeat? Where's the vocabulary for failure? And how do you talk about that? I mean, what do you do with that? Melissa, what about your kids? Do they seem to be focused on winning? Do they seem to care about winning?
Oh, my 7-year-old will cut your throat if it means she wins. She is dead serious. Like, you don't play sorry with her. Because she'll stab you. It's crazy.
Is she the youngest?
No, she's the middle child. But she is very, and if she does not win, she is not a good loser.
Right.
We're working on that. And I try to explain to her, well, didn't you have fun playing? It's a board game, dude. Didn't you have fun playing? We've been playing for 2 hours. It's fun. Yeah. Well, then who cares if your sister won? But I want to win. So we're still working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's very intense.
Well, I think there's such a low stakes to some of these things, right? So I mentioned the Clemson has been winning for a while, right? And we were only taking Holly to the games that were, relatively expected outcome kind of games. She hadn't gone to any real competitive ones. Like we didn't take her to the first Notre Dame game and the torrential downpour and things like that. I mean, she'd really just been going to the games that were just going to be fun, enjoyable family atmosphere kind of games. And so when Clemson lost, it was a couple seasons ago where we lost to, I want to say it was Louisville, and she just burst into tears. I mean, she just didn't even know what to do. And as she's walking out of the stadium and just sobbing her eyes out, this old man turns around, he pats her on the shoulder and he says, you play enough football, eventually you're going to lose. And my mom goes, that's exactly what my daddy always says. And I was like, that's exactly what I always say, right? Like it's a numbers game. It's just math. It's just statistics. There's just no way you can possibly win every single contest you ever get involved in. And yet that shouldn't be a reason to not play. You can't see it in this view, but up on my wall is the phrase, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And that's been, since I heard it, the mantra in my house and in my family, which is there is a risk of failure. There is a risk of loss. There is always that risk that it's not going to work out the way you want it to, but you shouldn't let your fear of that be the reason that you don't play at all, right? I don't think you should let losing ruin the experience of playing. I mean, just being on the field is what's so fun about it. Watching a really good game is what's so fun about it. And at the end of the day, we don't have any control over it anyway. I mean, even if we're in the stands, right, we might have a little bit of control over it from a crowd noise perspective, but we're not playing that ball game. We're not down there in those uniforms. Right. So it's about perspective at that point. And I know grown people who can't put it in perspective. I mean, adults who can't put it in perspective, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk a lot about, because with Jackson having played baseball, Caldwell has played some team sports just because it's my opinion. Some people don't agree, but I think it's really important for kids to learn how to be part of a team. Even if they don't function well as part of a team, they need to understand what it feels like to be part of a team, right? But with Jackson, because baseball is a hard sport to play, and he was always pretty good at it. But for us, it was, we give him the tools and the resources to play the game. And it's like that with Caldwell too. We give them the tools and the resources that they are going to need, even if we know they're not going to be good at something or they're probably going to fail at it. We give them the tools and the resources they need. And then when that does happen, we talk more about, what did you learn? What was that experience for you? What are you taking away from this? And if it's something that was very important to them that they want to do again, they want to be better at, we talk about, how are you going to do it better? What are you going to do next time to have a different or a more favorable outcome? Because it's not, they say it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And I think that's true. And I think that it's also important when you're part of a team, understanding how to treat those around you. And that's true not only in a team sport, but I mean, you think about in an election, right? Like we talk a lot about politics, but in an election, if a candidate treats their staff like crap, they're not going to have a staff, right? And so that staff's experience as a team at the end of that campaign, even if you lose, everybody walks away with a good experience, and everybody has learned things, and everybody has grown and developed themselves in some way.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. And I do think that there's a sense of, how do you treat people who are after the same thing you're after while you're after it, right? So in this period of time when we're at the game, we want to win the game, right? One of the things that we do at Clemson is welcome the opposing team's fans for coming. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for coming. I've never been to a game as a Clemson fan where I was welcomed and that people thanked me for being there. But we do that at Clemson. And so we are intentionally speaking to, and we seek out those opposing team fans and say, thank you for being here. And one of the earliest things I taught Holly was we might be on different sides right now, but we're not always on different sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from a football perspective, the Army, I grew up as a Navy fan. So the Army-Navy game, we're saying beat Army. We want Army to lose and all this kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, the Army and the Navy are on the same team. They're still both the American military forces, right? And so at the end of the day, they still have to be out there working together to keep our country safe and protect our interests and protect our freedoms. So it always seems to me that perspective piece in terms of this is a contest and we're going to play as hard as we can and we're going to do the best we can. At the end of the day, when it's over, we're still friends. And we shake hands at the end. That's my favorite part of the hockey games that we watch. Hockey games, even professional hockey games, they still line up and they go through and shake everybody's hand. Good game, good game, good game, good game. At the end of the football games, you still see the teams greet one another and shake hands and give each other hugs. And hey, thanks. That was a good contest and we're glad to be it. And that sportsmanship, I think, is really important because it allows us to come back the next week and play again.
Yeah.
Right. If we were always like, I'll cut you, we're done. You know what I mean? Then like eventually you run out of opponents. There's a reason the old gladiator games went away, right? Because you were running out of opponents.
Yeah, I think sportsmanship is very important. And I think, that's what I guess the overarching theme of this is. It's just being a good sport, right? So
what do you think, Melissa? How are you going to teach your middle daughter? Because I got to tell you, I'm a middle child too, and I'm super competitive. And it wasn't until when I'm in something that I have control of the outcome, where it's my personal work that I'm doing, then I can keep it in perspective in terms of measuring, hey, did I get better than I did last time? Was I better than my competitors, right? Like I can do that. I was a swimmer.
There's no personal best in Monopoly.
Right.
Yeah.
So exactly. So how do you, when you're, when I'm cheering for something that's not in my control is when I had to teach myself that like, you don't have to be super competitive about something that you can't control. Right. Football. Right. But so to your point, there's no personal best in Monopoly, but Monopoly is a good bit of luck too. Right. Yeah. Anything that depends on the roll of a die.
Yeah.
You have no control over that.
Yeah, and yes, that's another conversation we have often is what we can control and what we can't. We can't control whether we win or lose the card game. We're playing Uno or something. We can control our feelings and our reactions to that.
Right.
Take a deep breath, relax. It's okay. I know you're mad, of course, and it doesn't help that her brother and sister think it's hysterical that she loses her shit. So they are not gracious winners. They win and they have a tendency to say, I won. So we're working on that with them. It's just they're all around just egging each other on. So.
Oh, man. You know what? I feel like that's familiar too, though. And I think that's sort of the divine right of siblings is to find the thing that is your weakness and beat it out of you. You know what I mean? But so, Jessica, you put in our notes too, though, that there are no tantrums allowed in your house. So talk to me about what you think a tantrum looks like and how do you curb that behavior?
I mean, it's like when I say tantrum, I mean like, like throwing things, screaming, that sort of thing. Because I have seen grown men over Monopoly. My husband being one of them.
Nice.
Monopoly brings out the best in everybody.
Ooh, yes, it does. It is no longer allowed on family vacations. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, when my kids start to escalate over a situation, whether, they get upset, they're about to cry or whatever that looks like in that situation, I always make them stop. Like, this is not that big of a deal. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Nobody died, right? Like nobody died. We have our house. Like, what are you crying? Like, this is not something that you need to be that upset about. And putting it into perspective, because, and this is probably because I am a little bit old school about some things, and I will never tell my boys to man up and stop crying because they're boys and they can't cry. But if my kids are being ridiculous about something, I will tell them, you need to man up. Like, this is not something that you need to be upset about. Like,
you're being ridiculous is said a lot.
Yes,
in our house.
Use your words, and let's talk about why you feel the way you feel about this and why you're so upset, so that we can work this out, right?
Well, that's a part of developing strategies, emotional maturity strategies, right? Yeah. Where you create for yourself the kind of de-escalation mantra, right? Like, okay, the first thing I need to do is understand why I feel this way about it. Maybe it's because my siblings are taunting me, or maybe it's because I really thought I had a chance to win. I had really good cards, right? And so I kind of built my hopes up that I was going to win. So I'm really even double disappointed, right? Or maybe it's because the people around me are disappointed. That we find that a lot with the football games, where like everybody else is upset, so I guess I'm upset too, right? And so I think it sort of starts there. Like, why am I upset? And then what can I do about being upset? And then how do you sort of, and that's a coping skill set that kids have to learn. And parents should be guiding them through and teaching them how to build that emotional maturity, because if we don't, we end up with emotionally immature teenagers and adults. And there's a tremendous amount of anxiety that comes from not being able to guide yourself through that de-escalation, right? Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of my students have a lot of anxiety around grades, around expectations, around not meeting expectations, around not knowing what the expectations are, about falling short. And I'm saying to them all the time, like, what's at stake here? Like, what's really at stake here? Mm-hmm. Can you put it into perspective and help me understand the difference between your B+ and your B, and why that really is such a big deal? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
let's reason that out a little bit.
Scholarship? Do you not graduate? No. Between a B and a B+ doesn't make one lick of difference.
Well, right. And I think it's, we're talking about grades. It's really hard right now in the time of COVID, because a lot of kids are having an experience that they've never had before. I mean, like Jackson, for my Jackson, for instance, who's 12, he just started 6th grade. So we're going from 5th grade to 6th grade, which is already a huge transition. And we're having to do that virtually. I mean, he's having to deal with, changing classes, different teachers, new subjects, new subject matter, all this stuff. And both of my boys have always made very good grades. Jackson brought home his first bad test score. I think he got a D on a math test. Y'all, he was crushed. And I told him, I said, you have to give yourself some grace here. Like, you have to look at the circumstances under which you got that grade. Okay. Because this is not normal. Nothing about this school year is normal. And did you learn something? And he was like, yeah. And I said, do you know what you did that you messed up, that made you get this grade? And he said, yeah. And I was like, okay, then fix it. Study it. Next time you'll know it. You'll do better. Caldwell got a D on his report card, same subject, math. But just, I think as parents, we have a responsibility, because it's really easy. And I think the topic of grades is a really good one, because as parents, we want our kids to excel. We want for them to achieve academic success. And for some reason, that looks like straight A's to a lot of people, or all A's and B's. But we ask our kids to give themselves some grace, but we have to give them some grace too, right? Like, we have to be mindful of the situations that they are in if we want to help them work through that.
Well, I'm kind of smiling because Melissa's face when you said the thing about, so to some people that looks like straight A's, and she went, meh.
Well, my son is in fifth grade. He's in fifth grade, and he does virtual school. Like his normal school we're in our second year of online virtual school. And last year he was on honor roll. He got straight A's. It was great. This year, and there was a lot of cajoling on my part last year. But the first half of his sisters just went back to school. So it's been pandemonium around here. And he's trying to do his schoolwork. And he has failed for the past 2 weeks, every test he's taken. No matter the subject, he just fails it. And it's driving me insane. And not that he failed it. I keep trying to explain to him, he's like, you're mad I failed it. I said, I'm not mad you failed it. If you had actually tried and read, answered the question, he reads half the question, doesn't want to write down his work, doesn't want to answer the essay questions because he doesn't like essay questions. So he just leaves those blank or writes, I don't know. That's his answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to explain to him, it's not the grades that drive me insane. It's the lack of effort. It's the lack of caring. I'm like, this is your job. He just wants to get done so he can do something else.
Yeah, this has been a huge conversation in our family because I'm homeschooling Holly, right? And there are no tests. There are no grades. Here's this work you have to do, and you have to do something every day, and 180 days we'll be done with this, right? We have a basic curriculum that we're following. I'm giving her some basic resources, watch a few videos, answer some questions. This is not hard stuff. And every day, Holly, have you done your work? No, not yet. Holly, have you done your work? No, not yet. Well, you know what? We can't count today. So you'll get to do school on Saturday. Because the whole purpose is to count days, right? So at some point, we got ahead because we went down to the State House for the Spike Cohen thing that we did that Sunday. And she walked around the State House and we're like, hey, we can call this, a history field trip. So that's fine.
Oh, yeah, that's civics. There you go.
So we got ahead by one day. Well, then now we're behind by 3 days because she hasn't done anything for 3 days. I'm like, it doesn't take long. It takes an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And this is not boring stuff. This is interesting stuff. And she's just like, meh, I don't really care. I'd rather watch YouTube or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how to get that curiosity, right? That desire to learn, that thirst for knowledge, right? And as an educator, to me, the grades are arbitrary. They don't mean anything. They're totally I could give everybody in my class an A, and nobody would be the wiser, right? I can look at my students that are doing a really great job, that are coming to every class, that are really trying to learn and go, you're an A. The ones that are barely getting by, they're doing a little bit of work, but they're not doing much, but they're hanging in there. Okay, you're a C, right? And the ones that haven't checked in at all, you're an F. But it's those D's and B's that are hanging out there. These people are doing more than the C people, but not as much as the A people. You're a B, right? So I can see that. They want rubrics, and they want proof, and they want numbers, and they want metrics. And to me, the metrics are so arbitrary because, like I said, I can sniff out a B student in a heartbeat, right?
And especially because on subjects, I'm a math and science type of girl because there's a right answer and a wrong answer. My favorite part of English class was grammar because there's a correct answer. History, English, all that subjective stuff drove me insane. It still drives me insane. But
I just want them to think about this. I just want them to think about things at a higher level. I want them to analyze it. I want them to understand what's being said to them and how to use that to think. These are all tools for thinking. These are all tools for analysis, right? I just want something out of your brain that resembles original thought. That's all I'm looking for, right? And instead, even from homeschool, I'm getting meh. How can you not want to deliver original thought? And maybe again, because I have a PhD, so I'm somebody that is a little bit of a school junkie. I want to read, I want to learn, I want to analyze, I want to talk, right? Clearly. But there are apparently people who don't, right? There are apparently people who are just happy with like, let me fill in the boxes and go about my day and watch more YouTube.
That is my son. Yes.
That's Caldwell. Yeah.
I gotta hope it's age. I gotta hope eventually we age
Yeah.
into, and I'm wondering if I was that way when I was her age too, that school didn't do it for me. But I think I've always been a reader and I've always been curious. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well,
She won't even try. She won't even compete.
Will is looking he's very excited about 6th grade. We've applied him at a math and science charter school that we all hope he gets into. They've got, you graduate high school halfway to your associate's degree in, engineering sciences, computer programming, blah, de da, de da. So he's very excited. He wants to go to 6th grade. I keep trying to tell him you have to get through 5th grade first. You have to pass it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it again next year.
Well, that's Holly too. Holly wants to go to high school. She wants to go to have a traditional high school experience, but she also wants to get her associate's degree while she's in high school. So, and I'm like, you won't do 7th grade homeschooling for an hour and a half. Where is the evidence that you are willing to put in the rigor to do both a high school education and an associate's degree at the same time? She's like, I'm only going to be in college for 2 years because I'm going to get my associate's degree while I'm in high school. I'm like, that's a great idea. Show me how. Like, do anything resembling effort and I will be right on that train with you.
Yep.
But okay, so because I think we defaulted here to the grade conversation because that's really the competition that our kids are in right now. I mean, whether they're playing extracurricular sports, the competition is is the grades. And the only measurement we have for them in terms of education, in terms of knowledge, is grades. And so when that becomes arbitrary, like it has for us, the next question is, okay, where else can I put her that she'll be competitive and that she'll feel a sense of competition? So I make her swim and she hates it. I mean,
my 7-year-old has asked to be on the swim team.
Aw. What's asking like? Because all I'm getting is like abject horror and refusal.
She wants to try softball too. So she wants to do all the sports, all the time, all the sports.
Oh, somebody put it in Holly's head that she's not athletic. And I don't know where she got that because that is certainly not true. And that does not fly. I am not athletic either. But let me tell you something. I've been an athlete my whole life. I'm not a good athlete, but I do it because it's right for you. Like it's physically the right thing to do is to get exercise, right? But yeah.
Caldwell wants to be a ninja warrior.
We need that in our life. If there was a Ninja Warrior camp here that Holly could do that 3 times a week, she would 100% do that.
You should check gymnastics places. A lot of them have parkour classes now.
I will have to double check that then. Because she did say that if that's the one thing, because I said to her, she could pick any other sport besides swim. And until she finds another sport, she has to swim. And yes, exactly. And that's the one thing that she said she'd be willing to do if we could find it. So I should check, you said, with gymnastics places, parkour.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll look into that. All right. Now we've gone completely off the topic, but that's okay because we're not live. And if we need to, we can edit this part out. So teaching them how to lose, and especially now that we are in a culture where losers are derided, where people are made fun of for failure, where they're given such a hard time for taking a chance. People are skeptical about taking a chance. It doesn't seem like our kids have trouble with that. They don't seem self-conscious about taking a chance, or do they?
Mine aren't. I mean, I think, well, Caldwell is to some extent because unfortunately, I believe he inherited my anxiety. So he is a lot more, I guess, self-conscious than Jackson is. But when he is confident about something, he is like fiercely confident. Jackson, however, is always pretty confident, but if he doesn't succeed, he doesn't fall to pieces about it either. And I think it's because we've always had those conversations about what did you learn? What are you taking away from this? What can you do better next time? And so it's not seen as just this devastating loss.
Right.
It's all learning experiences. And that's
He's-
something we're trying to work through with Caldwell too.
He's well coached. That's what coaches will say about him when they watch that.
Yeah.
When they watch him willing to play a new position, willing to do something that he hasn't done before, give it a try, and not fall to pieces when it doesn't work out, they'll say he's been well coached.
Well, and that's why all of his baseball coaches have always loved him, because he's like, yeah, put me in wherever you want me. I'll be an outfield. I can play catcher. I'll pitch. Like, you need me to close out the game? Let's go. I'll play third. I'll play first. Like, he's played every position on the baseball field, like in game play, because he's just like, I'll just do whatever you need me to. Where you want me to go? You know?
I mean, we have people in our life that are unwilling to do things because they're not good at them.
Yeah.
There are people in our life that will not play cards, that will not play golf, if they're not good at them, they won't do them. And that's not me, right? But I can't be the only one leading the charge here, right? We have to be willing to take that chance and take the risk and try something that we're not good at and possibly fail at it. I don't know how to encourage her to do that, so I just make her do it.
I make Caldwell
catch on at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I make Caldwell do stuff because I feel like he needs to. I mean, that sounds really bad.
No, you're the parent. It's parenting. I mean,
yes, I think,
sometimes you just gotta say, do it.
I think this idea that children know what is best for themselves is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm, you know what? No, I'm not sorry. Because it's ridiculous. It is our responsibility to teach these children how to be well-adjusted, functional members of society. And if a child grows up to be an adult who falls to pieces because something doesn't go right, we have not done our jobs.
Or accuses everybody of cheating and fraud and files lawsuits and has a temper tantrum and then we fail in some way. You're exactly right. Let's wrap it up. That's right. Let's wrap it up because I do think there's another topic here with accepting blame. And we haven't necessarily added that to the list yet, but sometimes things are our fault. We have talked about taking responsibility for things, personal responsibility for things. So maybe maybe I should just give that shout out instead to that episode where we talked about that. That was the one, spitballs and spitballs and something.
Personal responsibility.
Spitballs and personal responsibility. I don't know why I thought it was more alliterative than that. Okay. This has been Parenting Porcupines, episode 15. A little bit of a wandering path to get through this, but I think it was good. I think it went well. And I want to wrap up here at 33 minutes because, we respect our friends' time and we respect their liking and sharing and commenting and being part of our Parenting Porcupines family. Find us out there on Facebook and send us messages. If you've got ideas for topics or things you'd like for us to talk about, we'd be glad to bring those topics into the studio. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.